They're called xenoestrogens, environmental hormones. Again, these are hormones that are mimicking our own hormones, our own estrogens. That's why we're seeing this huge increase in polycystic ovarian syndrome, with endometriosis, uterine cancer, massive amounts, 550,000 a year of hysterectomies. That's a lot from heavy bleeding. So yes, it's affecting us as human beings.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wellness for Life. I'm your host, Niki Wolf, and today's guest is Patricia Bowden-Luccardi, an expert in holistic women's health who specializes in identifying and addressing the health risks of environmental toxins and endocrine disruptors. Patricia uses thermography alongside natural protocols like diet and lifestyle changes to help clients reduce toxin exposure and improve their health. Her approach has positively impacted countless women, providing insights and solutions to tackle these often overlooked issues. Patricia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love to hear first off, could you tell us about your journey and what initially sparked your interest in environmental toxins in women's health?
Well, I've been doing thermography, and that's thermal imaging we think of it as for early detection of breast cancer. I've been doing it for 13 years. And in thermography, we have the color image that you think of, the infrared color, and then we have something called the grayscale. It looks like a black and white photograph. And in that black and white photograph, we can pick up backup of estrogens, of hormonal backup. And classically, estrogens will look like leopard spots. So I started seeing this 13 years ago, this estrogen dominance. So if it were natural hormones, it would look like leopard spots. If it were foreign hormones coming from the environment, it would still look like leopard spots. And sometimes it looks like kind of like pigeon feet, kind of looks like little spots all over the breast, but they're just backups of inflammation that are estrogens. And, now I'm seeing it on men, I'm seeing it on little boys, I'm seeing it on young girls. And if a woman went a hot flash in front of me, she would go totally leopard. Isn't that interesting? She would go totally like a leopard. But then the environmental estrogens are also coming up like that. So, but with the protocols I've been giving women over the years, sulforaphane, and we'll get into that flushes those receptor sites. A lot of those estrogens leave the body and leaves the good hormones behind. So I've been working with estrogen dominance for 13 years. And what's so great are these natural protocols that I can put a woman on for breast health and for removing these toxins off the receptor sites. And then she comes back 6 months later for a follow-up, and her breasts look like almost 100% different. So I can actually visually show the before and after.
It sounds like that it seems to be tricky in the beginning, or maybe before you even do a deep dive, of if environmental toxins and our natural hormones are kind of mimicking this same reaction. Mm-hmm. I can see how it's so often overlooked that environmental toxins are a major contributor and problem.
Well, they are, because we're starting to see this gender dysphoria of, it's not just affecting the human endocrine system, because these are coming into our body like natural hormones. And once they get in, they park on the receptor sites like Velcro. And you look at the PSAF, the forever hormones, they have a shelf life in our body for 2 to 4 years. And they're saying we can move a lot of these out, but once it gets into the bloodstream, we don't know. So if we have these environmental estrogens, or these toxins, that are going in through a woman and she's pregnant, her estrogens stay within her like a fishbowl. And if they go past the blood-brain barrier, they can do that. And if they enter the fetus into that first trimester, we don't know the trajectory of that little baby once their reproductive system comes online. So we have male fish becoming female for years in estuaries. We have amphibians. They've known for a long time that male frogs are becoming female. And the animals are having smaller livers. There's places, there was one Native American where they live on a reservation. And I guess they're very toxic there for whatever reason. And they said little boys are not being born. They have very little boys being born into their tribe. So it's affecting the entire endocrine system. They're finding these on the top of the Himalayas and the bottom of the ocean. And, they're just starting to talk about this. Environmental Working Group, they've been talking about it for years. But now there's a consciousness more and more about avoiding plastics and petrochemicals. I mean, petrochemicals are everywhere. They're everywhere. You look at the sports clothing. You can't get a piece of sports clothing or yoga pants that are not petrochemical. Look at babies.
What is petrochemical?
Petrochemicals they've been made out of polyester, out of all these different plastics that have been made into soft, stretchy fabrics. And I mean, a lot of women are not wearing underpants with their yoga pants because they don't want a panty line. And they have Athletica, was kind of old news. Athletica and Lululemon had a recall because women were getting crotch infections because they weren't wearing panties with it. So now you see a lot of companies that are coming up with organic cotton or cotton underpants and bras because we're wearing this stuff close to our body. And you look at children's clothes and children's toys and children's pajamas. I see it in my own family. It's petrochemicals. Sleeping all night with that stuff. I mean, so yes, we have to think about how it's impacting every aspect of our life. It's everywhere.
Absolutely. We're surrounded by it. Now, I'd love to kind of put out, could you give us some sort of like a simple definition of environmental toxins and endocrine disruptors? Because I know we talked about the endocrine system, but for those listening who maybe aren't familiar, I'd love to just lay that out for them.
Okay. So they're called xenoestrogens, with an X, xenoestrogens, environmental hormones, hormone mimickers, environmental estrogens, I say that. So these are hormones that are mimicking our own hormones, our own endocrine, our own estrogens. And they enter the body through drinking, through our breath, through ingestion, what we put on our skin. Our skin is our largest organ. And you look at how toxic, if you go to, and I'll just say Sephora, you're very toxic, very, very toxic. So all these cosmetics and stuff and skincare lines that people are putting on, so it enters our body. And then it finds these little receptor sites and they park. And they park like Velcro. And all of a sudden, our own hormones, our own endocrine, our own estrogens are no longer signaling correctly because our own hormones, estrogens, they are short-lived in the body. They stay for a short amount of time and they leave. Now we have our Velcros that are parking on the receptor sites and nothing can move. Nothing's functioning anymore. That's why we're seeing this huge increase in polycystic ovarian syndrome, with endometriosis, with uterine cancer. I've had 3 people in 2 months that have died of uterine cancer. I got one today called. These estrogens can't leave the body. We're seeing massive amounts, 550,000 a year of hysterectomies. That's a lot from heavy bleeding. And 1 in 6 couples are having difficulty with conceiving because the sperm count is down 63.3% around the world. I took that note. There's a woman named Shanna Swan. She wrote a book years ago called Countdown, and she's been following these environmental estrogens around the world. That's polluted everywhere. They're in the oceans the size of Texas, right? And she has been noticing how the sperm count continues to drop worldwide. So yes, it's affecting us as human beings. It's affecting our children. And some of these, like the obesogens that can come through these plastics that enter into at birth, it can the first trimester, maybe the second trimester. These can be transgenerational. They can be given into the next 2 generations. So if a woman is looking to get pregnant, she really has to do a detox. And we'll talk about that. But you can't just be, I had a woman today and she called me. She didn't have the money to take prenatal vitamins. She's a woman of color and they tend to have lower vitamin D levels. There's a direct link to neurological damage, autism, breast cancer without enough vitamin D. And guess what? Insurance companies don't want to pay for it anymore. It's so crucial. Hers were so low. She has 3 autistic children. 3. You think 1, 2, but 3. And she couldn't afford to do any prenatal. She couldn't take her vitamins. I mean, this should be against the law. This should really be against the law. If a woman's trying to get pregnant, it should be mandatory what her vitamin D levels are. And that's just one aspect of it. That's one aspect of it. But then we have to say, why are so many children in special ed? No one's talking about that, right? Our children are exposed to this on a daily basis. And there's, it's multifactorial. It could be a lot of different things. But you just have to think about what's in your refrigerator. I recently went into my refrigerator, and my boyfriend just today said, don't we have any ketchup? I said, I threw it out because it was in a plastic bottle. I don't want anything in my refrigerator that comes in plastic. So you have to buy things smaller. Your Hellmann's mayonnaise has got to be small. Your mustard small. Get to the bigger ones. And, they have these very hard plastics. The bisphenol A that you have, the hard, it almost feels like glass. I've actually gone into the grocery store. I looked around and I tap it on my teeth to see if it's glass or not. Because we have to just look at our consumption of plastic. So the average person who eats the standard American diet, that's called SAD diet, they eat a credit card size of plastic a week.
That's crazy.
That's
wild. I've heard this thing that we need to get rid of our plastic cutting boards because you're cutting, you're taking all that. I've also heard different things about wooden, but that's more of sanitary reasons. But what I like this kind of leading into is you've listed a number of things, but what are some of these common sources that we are facing daily, whether it's children, adults, that are, these sources of toxins that we're regularly consuming on a daily basis?
How about our water system? People dump their pills and their drugs in the water system. They come back. I mean, our water is so toxic, not to mention with the fluoride, the chlorine, and all the chemicals that have been dumped into it. Unless you have well water. I mean, look what we're drinking. We're drinking and we go, well, I have a water filter, but you're bathing in it. So can you afford to put it when it comes into your apartment, when it comes into your home? And we have to first look at water. We can't live without water. What do we put on our skin? What kind of cream do we put on our legs after we take a bath? Look at the cosmetics or what we put on our skin. And think about everything that's shrink wrapped in plastic. Shrink wrapped. So avoiding those things. I mean, they're interesting. There was a woman who wrote a book called Breast, and her daughter, they lived in a bubble for 2 weeks. They didn't touch any plastic. They made sure nothing had plastic on it, and their body burden, their toxic body burden dropped almost in half within 2 weeks. But then we still have to clear those receptor sites.
Absolutely.
But you know what? I know that like IKEA, there are a few companies that no longer put flame retardant in their mattresses. By law, they got to put it in for people that fall asleep with a cigarette. That outgasses. We get carpets, they outgas. And the things that we have, our own body sheds, and it goes into the dust, into the furniture. It's like, when you go and look and you go into a clothing store that sells consignment or Goodwill, I don't care if they're rich or poor, they all stink the same. That's because all the shedding that goes on in the clothes. So the shedding goes on all over our home. And the other thing, what do we clean with? What is our detergent? I had a woman yesterday came into the post office and she was reeking of some Tide or something. And after she left, we were all going, oh, did you smell that? You got to think about what you're washing your clothes in. And they might have changed over the years, but Murphy's oil soap. You think, oh, that sounds so good and clean for the house. Wash the floors with Murphy's oil soap. That's one of the most toxic things you can bring in your home. You learn to wash with vinegar. Learn to wash with maybe tea tree oil or thieves oil or essential oils. or just bicarbonate of soda and salt.
Right. Baking soda you can use for everything. That's mainly what I brush my teeth with, but countertops, I mean, baking soda and so much that you can do. And the thing is you have to be so intentional because it's not just the obvious things. I think a lot of people are like, okay, the cleaners and the perfumes and the Febreze, all these different things. I think most people are generally conscious of, okay, that's emitting certain things, but we have to be above and beyond, to your point of, plastic containers in the fridge. And granted, you can make your own stuff and put it in glass containers, but it does take a lot more effort and labor and consciousness, but it can truly move the needle for your health. And so one thing I'd love to explore is, what are some of the health impacts that we get from these toxins and endocrine disruptors?
Okay. One of the bandwagon I'm on right now, I've been collecting photographs from the thermography. I always ask, one of the first things I ask my patients, do you have root canals? Do you wear a night guard? Do you have an Invisalign? Do you have anything that you sleep with in your mouth? Root canals are so toxic. We see them draining down the chest, down the neck, right into the chest. I've had 3 went right into the right nipple. So Invisaligns, that's a cash cow of the dental industry. Root canals and Invisaligns. But Invisaligns and night guards are made out of petrochemicals. And unless you're going to a biological dentist, my colleague said, by law, those manufacturers don't have to tell you what's in there, but you better know they're plastic. So I had one little boy that came to me. Now remember, classically in thermography, estrogen will look like leopard spots. He was 18 years old. He had an Invisalign. He was covered in estrogen spots, thick drainage down his mouth into his chest, spots all over him like leopard spots, and he was growing big breast. And he was a young, slender boy. So that's what it's doing to their hormonal system. Wow. So we're seeing young boys with breast, men with breast. And so what we put in, and actually I just found out, it came up on my news feed, that Oral-B, the dental floss, has a forever hormone in it. So we have to think about, we don't even think about, our toothbrushes are made out of plastics, natural bristles, but how many people are going to take that next step, that extra step, that little bit extra money? Look at toothpaste. When are they going to come up with those toothpaste that you just pop it in your mouth like a little lozenge and chew it and get rid of the tubes?
They do have some of those. Like at health food stores, you can find some of them.
I have to do that. That's a great idea, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a good travel-friendly kind of thing, too.
Yeah, travel-friendly. I had a woman today, the one that had unfortunately has those children that are on the spectrum, and she was talking to me about bras, and she tells these big plastic things that fit over her breast. She doesn't wear a bra, and she fits them over her breast, and they're like globes with glue on them. How do you think their breasts? They can't breathe. They have plastic on them all day long. And I'll tell you, bras are a big contributor to breast cancer. And you look at the bra industry, and it's kind of jumping ahead to the kind of work that I do, because I see so much backup of lymphatic backup because of bras. And they've known since 1931, John Mayo, before he created the Mayo Clinic, that bras can set us up for stagnant lymph. And the lymph is one of it's our immune system. So that we need that lymph to get rid of those foreign estrogens, to get rid of all that debris, to get rid of those toxins that come in on a daily basis. And if they're stagnant because the bra holds it in place, pointed at the breast 24/7, because if she takes off the bra before she goes to bed, there's no lymph movement. So day after day, month after month, there's no movement of lymph. We have to move our lymph to have a healthy immune system. And tight clothing. I know your mouth is dropping open.
Well, I'm curious. So it's not realistic for everyone to not be able to wear a bra, whether it's the size, whether it's the environment you're around, whether it's moral reasons.
We'll go to that.
What do we do?
Okay. There are a lot of bras out there that for larger busted women, that if it's leaving a mark on the body, it's too tight. So you can get bra extenders. You can get from 4 snaps, you can get them down to 1. The lift is in the strap. It's not the underwires holding you up in space. The lift is in the strap. So if they're wearing sports bras, sometimes the sports bras are very tight, so the breasts don't breathe. The breasts are pendulous. They need to breathe. They run a degree or two cooler. So there's sports bras like Jockey. They have cotton bras. You have to get it online. You can't get it at those outlet centers. Blue Canoe, Pact, B-A-C-T. There's quite a few that are out there, but they can accommodate bigger busted women, and they have the straps that you can make shorter or longer to have the lift. But yes, some women have to wear a bra because they're large busted. They're teachers. They can't have their nipples show or something. But they have all kinds of camisoles now with little panels there. But there's ways to do it that we're not constricting our breasts and putting them in all these weird shapes. Because there's a book called Dress to Kill, The Link Between Bras and Breast Cancer. Sidney Ross Singer, he's a medical anthropologist. He's gone around the world for 10 years with his wife, and he studied bras, lymph, and breast cancer. And I'm on his Academia EDU website, and it's just a matter of time there's going to be lawsuits. In fact, Iran, last April, a group of midwives, now they have to cover themselves pretty much, a group of midwives have now sued the breast cancer and the bra industry. So it's just a matter of time. But if a woman can, when she gets home, take that bra off. Do dry brushing, jump on a rebounder. Use castor oil. It's great for the breast and the lymphatic system. Get a lymph cleanse. There's so many ways to move that lymph, but the lymph, at the least amount of compression, is going to stagnate that lymph. And we think about tight clothing. We have lymph nodes behind our knees. We have lymph nodes up here. Think of a man wearing a tight tie all day. Look, I'm 74 years old. I like skin-tight clothing. I wear skin-tight pants. I still look good in them. But I will tell you, they're not as comfortable as they used to be. But those skin-tight pants, I never wore the jeggings. But if they are tight on your legs, you're compressing your immune system and your lymph system all day long.
It seems like there's better options. I mean, you can get the organic bras, but when there are opportunities to not wear anything, let your body and your skin breathe, take advantage of that, to your ability. And then, there's a one-off, especially if you're bigger chested and you're working out, you're generally not working out for 12 hours a day. It's a very short window. Do what you need to do, especially if you're at like a group class. Totally get all that. But what can you do in your control outside of those opportunities? And I think that's where we need to press into and start making those changes. I wanted to focus, a little bit more too about some of these other health impacts that these toxins and disruptors affect us. I mean, let's dive in a little bit into these infertility issues, because I have people in my life who struggle with infertility. And we mentioned earlier, the sperm count, but I can imagine this is also drastically affecting the women in the egg quality and amount. What does that look like?
Well, this is getting into different protocols, but we are in an iodine deficiency, and it happened between the 60s and the 70s. They told people to not have table salt because of the high blood pressure. And there was just enough iodine in our salt not to have goiters. Just not to have goiters. And so they took it out of the bread. It used to be Wonder Bread, had enough iodine to support a person, for a daily intake. And they took it out of the milk. They'd wash the teats on the cows with iodine. 10 years later, we have no iodine. We are an iodine deficient country. Now in Japan, those women have an average of 12 milligram a day. They're eating seaweed. They have a higher IQ because iodine is connected to IQ. And you look at places like Sweden and Norway, they're on the ocean. They eat a lot of sea vegetables and fish. So 10 years after not being on any iodine, all the endocrine disruptors started dovetailing. Thyroid cancer, breast cancer, pancreas cancer, prostate cancer, ovarian cancer, nodules, cysts, fibroids, because there's not enough iodine. Our entire endocrine system stores iodine. And before the 70s, nobody heard about pancreatic cancer. But I can always say one thing. Doesn't matter your religion, doesn't matter your politics. You can always agree on follow the money, because you can't patent an element. Can't make any money on iodine. So they scrubbed it. They put it on the back burner. They made it scary. They made it dangerous. When I first learned about iodine, I said, I'm not taking that. I was afraid of iodine. They made it fearful. So then, because they can start treating all these disorders. So I was just on a wonderful webinar last week with Dr. Lindsay Berkson. She is the foremost scholar in endocrine disruptors. She wrote a book called Hormone Deception, and she was on the think tank at Tulane University for 15 years. And she has studied these endocrine disruptors, how they're affecting the human body. And she was talking about iodine. I've been giving my patients iodine for years. And then she pointed out that iodine, the biggest enemy for iodine is fluoride, is chlorine, is bromide. Bromide, it's in bread products. That's why everybody should be gluten-free. Nobody should be eating any kind of bread products. But again, that's going to disrupt. So we need the iodine. So if a woman has a cyst in her breast, treat it with iodine. It's cheap. It's like $30 for 3 months. There's 3 iodines. There's a potassium iodine, sodium iodine, and an iodide and an iodine. Molecular iodine comes from seaweed and all. But 3 are better. One's for the thyroid, one's for the skin, one's for the breast. So if a woman has the cyst, which is so normal for women coming to me, and then what do they suggest? Biopsies. Women are being over biopsied for cyst, and they're always benign, almost always benign. It's a big business. Being biopsy is a big business. So, but those cysts can turn into hard nodules, then they turn into hyperplasia, and it turns into breast cancer. So ovarian cyst, the ovary store the iodine. Then you think that, why do we have so many polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids? I give a woman an iodine douche, and within it's 5 days on, 2 days off, another 5 days on, and unless they're really big, they're gone. They're gone. But iodine is crucial. But now here's the key: iodine. If we don't have iodine, estrogen becomes dysregulated and disrupted. We are covered in iodine. We're covered with estrogen everywhere. We're living in an estrogen dominant world. So much breast cancer is estrogen dominant. Is it our estrogen or is it the foreign estrogens? Because these can't be tested on a normal hormonal test. They have to be, if you really wanted to test it, you do it on a toxicity report. But there are certain things out there in the vegetable kingdom, like sulforaphane from broccoli, that has that innate wisdom to flush those receptor sites, leaving our good estrogen. So we don't have to know that those are bad estrogens. But if you really want to know, you do a toxicity report. So here we have iodine that keeps this estrogen together, keeps it with just becoming dysregulated. But iodine turns on estriol. Estriol is a positive estrogen, and it turns on apoptosis. Apoptosis is a natural cell death. So think it's like Pac-Man. It eats up all those renegade cells. So iodine is crucial for our endocrine health, and it's crucial for fertility. It's crucial for fertility.
Absolutely. I remember when I was doing some research on thyroid, or just the thyroid gland and the functions, and I can't remember if it was for the conversion of T4 to T3, that wherever it is in that pathway, that iodine is a precursor to finalizing these reactions. And a lot of like the allopathic Western approach, they just look at TSH. But when you look further down the chain, to ensuring that you have a healthy thyroid, iodine is a crucial component of ensuring that reaction finishes. So absolutely. And that's part of our endocrine system that we need for full functioning, vitality, energy, your metabolism, everything like that. So absolutely.
Yeah, Lynn Farrow, F-A-R-R-O, Lynn Farrow, she wrote a book called Why You Need Estrogen. Where's that book? I just had it. Hang on. Oh, darn, I just had it for yesterday. Anyway, what your body needs to know about iodine and how it can wreck your health. Dr. David Brownstein is also an iodine guru. And I had a lady that came to me, she's 37, and she had an advanced ultrasound on her thyroid. And he said, well, I think you have to remove half of it. So she called me and I said, I think it was systolic thyroiditis or something. I forget what it was. But anyway, I looked it up. It was a lack of iodine. And I said, well, I thought about all the doctors she could go to in New York City. And I thought, why don't you just put it on your credit card, get on a plane, go to Michigan, and go see Dr. David Brownstein. He ran all the thyroid tests, T3, T4, saved her thyroid with iodine.
Jeez.
At 37 years old, they were going to take away half of her thyroid.
Wow. Yep. That's why second opinion's always a great thing too, and continue,
That's right.
Being a critical thinker, learn as much as you can, ask questions. That's great. Now, are there specific systems or areas of the body that are more vulnerable to these toxins?
I think our breasts are very sensitive. They're the canary in the mine. So again, I see it coming to me. Women with lumps, women with cysts, women calcifications, painful breast, and then you have to think also if it's in the armpit or in the in that axillary nodes up there. Chances are it's going to be lymph, and there's a lot of mileage a woman gets from taking her bra off. But I think our breasts are at risk right now more than any other part of the body.
Yeah. Well, I think so. That's one practical thing we can do is removing our bra as much as possible. I think changing our deodorant, you think about how close that is to your breast, but what are some other practical steps people can do to reduce their exposure to environmental toxins on an everyday basis?
Well, read labels. So let me explain BPA, how it had the connection to breast cancer. At Duke University, they had breast cancer cells in test tubes, and they started proliferating. And they found that it was leaching the BPA. That's where they found the huge connection between BPA and breast cancer that Susan G. Komen is absolutely vehemently denounced that there's no connection between of it. So the lining of cans, 50% of the lining of cans that come to this country are lined with BPA. Even more. I think it's more. No, I forget the statistic. All I know is that it had the increase in the proliferation of breast cells more than what the BPA had at Stanford University in those little test tubes. So we have to look what those cans have BPA lined. So if you're getting tomato juice or, coconut, why are we really taking things out of a can? But we want to see that it says BPA free. So
now, what about like sparkling water and stuff like that? Like even in those types of cans?
Well, that's hard to say. It's, I don't, that's a good question. I don't know. But we have to look at all those. Go ahead.
The canned tomatoes, I think it's slightly different of a structure. Maybe it's a little bit thicker, but I can imagine the cans, even with sparkling water in those, even though it's thinner, there has to be something, especially
aluminum or something. Well, you think about these water bottles that everybody's using. They're made out of plastic. You have to think about our water bottles that we're drinking out of. But
you're talking about just like the clear ones. Are you referring to, something like a Yeti
something
or something
like that? I have that one, yeah. But a lot of those things you can get at like Walmart. They're just plastic bottles that you drink out of, that you keep on your car and your knapsack and everything. But it's going back to, what do we use the most? Drinking. We drink water. Where's that water being stored? Yeah. So that would be one of them. And how do you clean your house? How do you wash your clothes? What are you around in your daily life, in your home environment? That's really big. How do you clean your house?
Yeah, I think household cleaners, makeup, candles, and these things too. You don't have to do all these at once,
those
but
things
start
that they
taking.
Put in what they call fragrance. The fragrance that they stick in the wall. You see them. You have them in cab drivers that put that that little smelly thing up there. Interesting about perfume. Perfume has up to 400 chemicals in it. What happened to the day of Chanel No. 5, Shalimar, where it was just the essence of flowers. Now, anybody can put their name on a perfume, and they have up to 400 chemicals. But if you look at cosmetics, eyeshadow has endocrine disruptors. Cheek color has endocrine disruptors. Foundation, fake tan, all of those have endocrine disruptors. I was a makeup artist for 40 years in the city, and the city is New York City. And I recently threw away all my Dior, Chanel. They had good pigments, and I thought, well, they were better, but hey, they're still toxic. But it gave me great joy to see just taking those things and just of course, it's plastics going into the landfill, but I don't use any of that anymore. I personally use Dr. Hauschka. But
I think there's so many natural options now. I use Ilia. I mean, there's so many things available. You go to a health food store, and even Sephora does sell a handful of better quality, cleaner ingredient makeup. And kind of to the same point of your bras. And I try to do this is I've just never been a big makeup person, but I generally use makeup for events or if I'm doing recordings. And to be honest, after recordings, I take it off. Granted, the ingredients of the makeup that I'm using are still clean. I just would rather let my skin breathe and, and putting on good. I'm currently on a tallow kick of putting that on. And I know that's not for everyone, but it works well with my skin. It's natural, ingredients. But I think doing what we can. And I know sometimes putting on makeup, even if you're not doing a recording and going to an event, it makes you feel good. So it's about finding that balance and making the changes in your life that you can apply that are realistic and work well for you and your family.
Well, we want to have a little lipstick on occasionally. It makes us feel good. But again, you're right. Environmental Working Group, they've been around for a long time. There's the Dirty Dozen, the Delightful 12. It's great that you can put it on your refrigerator and say, well, you have to buy organic for this. You don't have to buy organic for that. Strawberries, blueberries, and bell peppers have been on the top of that for 25 years. You just can't not eat a strawberry unless it's organic. But they list a lot of the cosmetic companies that are working with, again, whatever we put on our skin is in our body in 26 seconds. So it has an immediate uptake. It's pretty.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You go, well,
You mentioned at the beginning you were talking about detoxification. I'd love to explore that a little bit of maybe some natural protocols or lifestyle changes that you found effective helping clients detoxify their bodies.
Well, first of all, I have all my clients or my patients, they take iodine with selenium. And even if they have hypothyroidism, you still need a tiny bit of iodine. You can use that with thyrazine and with selenium. But I put them on that. And there's something called sulforaphane. It comes from the broccoli seed. Now, we always think broccoli sprouts are so great. And all the cruciferous vegetables are great too. But when you're taking a nutraceutical formula, you can't eat 40 pounds of broccoli. So what the seed growers out of Kentucky, they've grown these seeds from a special species of broccoli. Johns Hopkins have extensively looked at broccoli seeds and broccoli sprouts, and they found that it inhibits breast cancer cells. It is so good for the breast. And it has the ability to work what's called the phase 2 enzyme pathway. That's the pathway that passes through the electrophils, the precancerous toxins, all the things, the debris, but it flushes those receptor sites of those foreign estrogens. And children can take that. That's why we're seeing a lot of the gender dysphoria, because their hormones are locked. They're locked. Kids are getting all these hormones. Everybody's getting them, and they're blocking their receptor sites. So this is where we have the innate wisdom of plant medicine, because you don't have to say, oh, that's a foreign estrogen. That sulforaphane has it coded within those seeds to flush those receptor sites. And I will tell you, I get the best before and after images of women's breasts of estrogen dominance. One woman was so covered in these leopard spots. I wish I could just show a picture of it. And she was, after 6 months, it was completely gone. All you could see were vascular patterns. And they said, well, wait a minute. We've never seen that. Maybe you should come back in 6 months and let us look at your breast again. Turns out that she didn't have any estrogen of her own. So she went on bioidentical hormones, and then she has the estrogen patterns again, but she continues taking the Brocco Protect or the different Brocco products from the sulforaphane. But we know by looking at her hormonal reports, her estrone pathways are 100% clear. Those are the ones that are blocked if a woman's taking something like tamoxifen and they just keep recycling those estrogens in the body. those pathways are blocked. And where do they go? They park on the uterus, they park on the heart, they park on different parts of, inside the body. It becomes another cancer. So those estrone pathways are cleared through using sulforaphane.
Fantastic.
So, everybody should be using it. Children can be using it, breasts need it. Because I say, when are you never not exposed to foreign estrogens?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in our day and age and just this amount of consumption that we have. You're filled with it unless you're living in the middle of nowhere, Amish lifestyle, or, you're just kind of in the woods or something like that. Absolutely. Or the bubble experiment that gal was doing. I'd love to kind of transition into this conversation around thermography and how it helps detect toxins in the body. For those listening who might be unfamiliar with this, can you explain how it works and who might benefit from it?
Mm-hmm. Well, thermography's been around since the 50s. It's our body gives off information in heat. So we think of an X-ray. We think we have auric fields. We also give off information in infrared. So it's a special camera. It's really just I don't have it here. It's a thermometer, but it's very high tech. They have the same cameras that I have that are being taken to the rover on Mars. It's this ICI camera. And again, they've been using it in espionage because anything that's alive is going to give off heat. So when a woman comes to me, so this is a camera that's looking for the heat in the body, to the Celsius, or the lack of heat. So when she comes to me, she is unclothed to the parts that she wants to have imaged. And so after 15 minutes of acclimating to the room temperature, then her nipples are the same temperature as the room, and she gives off the best information in infrared. That's how the body starts to project that off the body. And the camera is just picking up the heat. They're looking at the bilateral heat. They're looking at the heat in the nipples. They're looking at the heat in the lymphatic system. They can see carotid artery blockage. If it's cold, that means there's lack of heat. So if it's in the legs and one side of the vein is warm and the other side is cold, that's a potential, stroke happening in the vascular system. So it's been around. It was covered by insurance until 1987, and the mammography lobby took it out. So the way it is right now, they're offering us only anatomical studies, MRI, ultrasound, or a mammogram. So that means once it's found there, they have to treat it. So they took out the prevention part. So you don't go to school and study just anatomy, you study anatomy and physiology. So because we have a system that's based on monetizing our breast and managing sick patients, sick management, it's chronic illness management, we're not given prevention. So it's not woo-woo science. If your doctor says, "Oh, I don't believe in thermography," you go, "Well, you don't believe in physics? It's physics." So it's a wonderful tool, and it can detect sometimes 8 to 10 years before it's seen on a mammogram, because once it's seen on a mammogram, an MRI, or an ultrasound, then they have to treat it. But then it's not found on everybody. There could be cold tumors. A woman could be very heavily, very busted, that they can't see that deep. But again, it's done with an ultrasound, anatomy and physiology. And they did a study at Presbyterian Cornell, in, I think, in 2008. And they found that with the sensitivity, particularly for dense-breasted women that we'll talk about, that it had as high as a 97% sensitivity. Thermography with an ultrasound. And it's environmentally safe. So, they're pushing women at 40 to have mammograms, but we're seeing this cancer reach younger and younger women because of this hormonal imbalance. So a woman should start checking her breasts at the age of 20, because you see a lifetime of what your breasts look like. And you come back in 6 months and you do a baseline. And you can see the hormonal backup. A young girl should have hormones. But, it's a great way to monitor your breast health. And it's non-invasive. It's not that expensive. And there are thermography labs all over the country, so the company that I'm with is Breast Thermography International. And, we have doctors that review the reports. But again, and I wrote a book called Thermography and the Fibrocystic and Dense Breast. So 49% of the population have dense breasts. There's nothing wrong with having dense breasts. It just means there's more glandular and connective tissue. So what happens on a mammogram, a tumor is white. Well, so is the connective tissue. So they're pushing mammograms on women younger and younger because they have dense breasts. They can't see. They do biopsies of the lumps in their breasts. They can't see it. They do biopsies. So I started to see a pattern. I said, I have to write a book on this. So I had 9 women in 2 days that were over biopsied, over treated, over diagnosed. And one had already had 2 biopsies and 4 mammograms, and she was only 42. That's young for all that. So dense breasts should never, not should never, but it just can't be seen on a mammogram. But they're going to push that. Thermography and ultrasound's the way to go on that one. But
is there any environmental toxins or physical issues with mammograms?
Well, yes, radiation and compression. There were 2 studies. It was a 25-year study. Maybe it was Journal of American Medicine. And then there was a 30-year study, 25 and 30, of British Medical Journal. And they studied mammograms, and they concluded that the harm outweighs the good because of the compressions, over-treatment, over-diagnosis, and radiation is cumulative. I still have the picture of the New York Times that it was on saying, doubts on mammograms. But it's on the news for 1 minute, and then it's going because it's a $380 billion industry. Again, So that was the fear factor. That's what women are given. And that's it, because it's based on treatment. Honestly, our breasts are monetized, and they're sexualized through the bra industry. And interesting that the bra industry is all run by men. It's the lingerie business. And then we have other issues that come up around our breasts. If a woman they have to look at the trauma. A lot of us have traumas around our breasts from teasing, all kinds of things. But our breasts are very sensitive. I always ask a woman, I said, well, would you radiate your baby? She goes, no. I said, well, why do you want to radiate those little babies on your chest? She said, I don't want to. I've had so many conferences I've gone to, and I said, everybody raise their hand if they've had a mammogram. Now raise your hand if you'd like to have another mammogram. Nobody's raised their hand once. But, mammograms are great for finding calcifications. But then we have to ask, why do we have so many calcifications? We got to look at our magnesium deficiency, magnesium, calcium. Everybody's short in magnesium. It's the most crucial mineral to our body. It has, 300 different functions in the body. It's huge.
Absolutely. And most of us are all deficient in magnesium as well. So it's incredibly crucial. I just finished an episode talking about the importance of magnesium. I feel like we've covered so many different things in this episode on the understanding of what these toxins do to our body, just different practical ways that we can help support our body. Are there any other final tips or resources you would recommend for listeners who want to learn more on starting to reduce their toxin exposure?
Go through your refrigerator, throw out everything that's got plastic in there, whether it's your mustard, your curries or whatever. Flush your refrigerator first. It was interesting. There's something called Truth About Cancer, or Global Quest, and Ty Bollinger, he did another series this summer. And they're showing how people with stage 4 cancer has turned around cancer. They've gone around the world interviewing people, and it all boils down to detoxify, detoxify, detoxify. Go through your refrigerator, get closest to home as you can, throw it out, throw it out, throw it out. If you keep your stuff in plastic containers in the refrigerator, throw it out. You gotta go to Walmart. At least they have those little glass containers. They may have a plastic top, but keep everything in glass. If you don't do that, you have ball jars. If you want to freeze things, put them in ball jars. But start at home. Go under your sink. Throw everything out that's not natural. Get baking soda. Get vinegar. These things are simple. If you have to have bleach every now and then, start at home. Start with your products at home. How do you clean your car? How do you clean inside? Think about that. If you live in the city, don't wear shoes in the house. What those shoes pick up outside and you bring it into your home, think about that. Japanese don't wear shoes in their home. So you're looking at your home. You're looking at what you're wearing, looking at what you're sleeping in, looking at what bras you put next to you. And you start to, just start to work around that. And you're going to have a lot of mileage. Now, I'll tell you right off the bat where you can get the sulforaphane from the broccoli seed grower, and it's called CH Health, and they grow it in Kentucky. So the big nutraceutical companies that buy it, like Designs for Health, Biotics Research, they buy this from that seed grower, and it's called Vitality Plus the physician's formula, physician strength, CH Health, Vitality Plus the physician strength, that has 600 milligrams of sulforaphane. So because sulforaphane's on so many people's bandwagons, they're touting, oh, we got 5 milligram, we got 50 milligram. They've got 600. 600. Again, huge response to those receptor sites. So invest in a few bottles of it. It's $80 a bottle for a 2-month supply. It's nothing. 1 a day, 2 a day. If a person has cancer, they can take up to 10 a day. This is serious stuff. Get some iodine. $30 for a 3-month supply. Get some iodine. This is working with your endocrine system. We need vitamin D. We need selenium. We need minerals. Minerals. We need magnesium. Because magnesium, these are cofactors of vitamins. So just think about what we're putting in our body. You don't want to take 50 different vitamins a day, but you need some that are crucial to your health. And get with a functional medicine doctor. Do your blood test. Let them do all your bloods. It's covered by insurance. Use your insurance for your blood work. But, work with a biological dentist. If you have root canals, consider taking them out. If they're in the back, there's a movie called Root Cause, and it's the truth on root canals. It was yanked, pun intended, it was yanked off Netflix within a week. And you can get it on YouTube and Amazon. Root Cause. I saw it with a dentist. It's a little squeamish. It's funny. And some of my doctors, I do thermography in other offices. And one doctor, she plays it over and over and over on her TV screen. But root canals are, there's a big connection to oral health and our breast health, to all parts of our body. If you have mercury, if a person has mercury in the mouth, got to consider taking that out with a biological dentist. I was at a dentist a couple of weeks ago, and in the bathroom, he had a chart this big, and it was on all the things that mercury did to the body, to the organ system. I mean, it was small print. So our teeth, what's in our mouth, has a huge impact on our breast and our immune system. And every tooth sits on a meridian point. So oral health is so important. And, when you start working with your teeth, it's like buying a good used car. It's a lot of money. But you have to rule out what's creating toxins in your body. And what comes from the mouth is a huge one. So root canals, amalgams, any kind of plastics, any kind of dental dams or something like that. And let's say if a person does have these root canals, these objects in the mouth that are out of petroleum products, and get on a good lymph cleanse on a daily basis to make sure it's flushing out. It's flushing out. So you have to work with it. You just can't have it backing up. I had one woman with breast cancer in New York City, and she took out the tooth that was sitting on the breast meridian, and she got better. She got better. Should I answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's, something for everybody who's listening. Whatever is in your life that you can adjust or transition or find an alternative for, I think there's something for everybody. You provided a ton of practical support there. Patricia, where can people find you if they want to know more?
My website is Patricia Luccardi, LUCCARDI, patricialuccardi.com, .com. And I have a great website, and in fact, I have an article just coming out on iodine. It should be out any day. And I'm in New York City, and I'm with Breast Thermography International. We have labs all over the country. Highly suggest getting a thermogram just to see the condition of your breast. And as they say, ditch the bra. If you can ditch that bra, ditch that bra. But, start to make changes around your breast. Really make changes. And you know what? Love them because you want to keep it for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Well, Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your insight and expertise and just so many things that we can apply on a regular basis. So I very much appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.